The great chamber of Zenith Prime Station had never seen such disorder. Council members from 40 different species filled the curved rows of seats, their voices rising in a chorus of anger and confusion. At the center of it all stood Ambassador Hyansu, his expression calm as stone while chaos swirled around him. Velmora. The Insectoid Council chair raised her four upper limbs for silence. Her compound eyes reflected the light from 1,000 angles. "This behavior is unacceptable," she said, her voice amplified through the chamber. "No species refuses a council summons. No species ignores our authority." Hyansu adjusted his simple gray suit and looked up at her without fear. Behind him stood Taeyong, a quiet man who served as military advisor to the human delegation. Taeyong's face showed nothing, but his eyes tracked every movement in the room. "We did not ignore your summons," Hyansu said clearly. "We came. We are here. But we came to tell you that this is the last time we will answer such demands." The chamber erupted again. Species that had served the council for thousands of years looked shocked. Some looked interested. A few looked pleased. Velmora's mandibles clicked together sharply. "You stand accused of serious violations. Unauthorized expansion into restricted sectors, military buildup beyond allowed limits, refusal to pay tribute taxes to the council treasury. These charges demand answers." Hyansu reached into his jacket and pulled out a small data device. He held it up. "This contains every treaty, every law, every regulation the council has published in the last 200 years. We have followed each one. Not one has been broken. The laws were not written for species like yours," Velmora said. The honesty of it made several council members shift uncomfortably. They were written to maintain order. To keep aggressive species from threatening the peace, to keep lesser species in their place, you mean, Hyansu said quietly. The silence that followed felt heavy. No one had ever said it so plainly before. A reptilian council member named Kresh leaned forward. His scales were dark green, marked with age. "The human speaks truth that many know, but none say. The laws serve some more than others." Velmora turned her massive head toward Kresh. "You object to 3,000 years of peace? The council system works because species know their role." "Our role," Hyansu said, "is apparently to stay small, stay weak, and pay for the privilege." We counted the tribute taxes. Over 15 years, humanity has paid 4 times what the Centauri systems paid. Our systems are newer and smaller. Why do we pay more? No one answered. The math was simple. Everyone knew it. "We expanded into empty systems," Hyansu continued. "No one lived there. No one claimed them. Your own law from 2847 says unclaimed systems may be settled after proper survey. We surveyed. We settled. Now you call it unauthorized." "The law has exceptions," Velmora said stiffly. "The exceptions are not written down. They seem to appear whenever humans do something you dislike." Hyansu's voice remained level. "As for military buildup, we have 17 defensive stations across our space. The Korvax Union has 43. The Veltorian Empire has 91. But you do not summon them." A younger council member stood up. Her name was Jiwan, and though she belonged to the Centauri species, she had spent years living among humans. "Perhaps we should discuss this calmly. The human ambassador makes valid points. The human ambassador will comply or face consequences," Velmora snapped. "Humanity is young. They do not understand how things work. We are trying to teach them." Hyansu smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We understand perfectly. The council does not operate on law. It operates on fear. You threaten species until they obey. You write rules that only apply to whoever you want to control. And you call it peace." Chaeyong stepped closer to Hyansu and whispered something. Hyansu nodded. "We have been patient," Hyansu said to the chamber. "We answered your questions. We paid your taxes. We followed rules that change based on your mood. We tried to work within your system. But today, we realize something important. This is not a system of laws. It is a protection racket. How dare you?" Velmora rose to her full height, her body segments extending. She towered over the human delegation. Hyunsu did not step back. We dare because we are done being afraid. You want to sanction us? Blockade our worlds? Send your fleets. Do what you think you must. We will not pay tribute to a corrupt system. We will not ask permission to live in empty space. And we will not come when you summon us like servants. The human delegation turned to leave. Their footsteps echoed in the suddenly quiet chamber. If you walk out that door, Velmora called, you declare yourselves outside council protection. Any species may move against you. Any treaty is void. You will stand alone. Hyunsu paused at the entrance. He looked back over his shoulder. We have been alone since we arrived. You never intended to treat us as equals. At least now we can be honest about it. This is your final warning, Velmora said. Her voice carried a threat that had made other species surrender for centuries. Return to your seats. Comply with council authority, or face the full weight of galactic civilization. Hyunsu looked around the chamber one more time. Some species looked angry. Some looked afraid. A few, like Jiwon and Kresh, looked thoughtful. He wondered how many of them were tired of the same system. How many had wanted to say no, but never found the courage. We will be ready, Hyunsu said simply. Then he walked out. Taeyong closed behind. The doors closed behind them with a deep boom. In the chamber, council members began shouting at once. Some demanded immediate military action. Others counseled patience. A few wondered quietly if the humans might actually be strong enough to back up their words. Velmora remained standing, her compound eyes fixed on the door. She had ruled the council for 40 years. She had seen hundreds of species bend to council authority. None had ever simply walked away. Prepare sanctions, she ordered. Inform the fleet commanders. Humanity will learn their place, or they will learn what happens to those who defy the council. But as the chamber slowly emptied, Jiwon approached Kresh. They stood together, watching Velmora give orders to her assistants. She is making a mistake, Jiwon said quietly. Kresh's dark eyes blinked slowly. Yes, I have studied humans. They do not bluff. If they say they are ready, they are ready. Will you support military action? No, Kresh said. I will not send my people to die proving the council's authority. Some things are not worth the cost. They left together, and as they walked, they both wondered the same thing. How many other council species were tired of paying the cost? And what would happen when everyone realized the humans had found the courage to say no? The emergency session began 3 hours after the humans left. The council chamber felt different now, smaller somehow. Velmora had called only the senior members, those who held real power. They sat in a tight circle, and for the first time in anyone's memory, they looked worried. Show them the reports, Velmora ordered. A holographic display filled the center of the room. Numbers and charts appeared in the air. A military analyst named Borin stood to explain. He was Korvax, his gray skin marked with stress patterns. We underestimated human expansion, Borin said. His voice carried none of the usual confidence military officers showed. We thought they controlled perhaps 20 systems. Our intelligence now confirms they have established presence in 47 systems. Full colonies in 31. Mining operations in 16 more? 47. One of the council members stood up. That is more than the Talvarian Confederacy. Yes, Borin said. And it gets worse. These are not simple colonies. Each system has defensive satellites, military stations, supply depots. They have been building for 15 years, and we never noticed because they did it slowly, carefully. The display changed to show economic data. The numbers made several council members lean forward. Human economic output now exceeds the next 5 council species combined, Borin continued. Their manufacturing capacity is extraordinary. They produce more ships, more equipment, more everything than we realized. They trade with over 60 different species, including 30 council members. Impossible, Velmora said. We restricted human trade. Only approved partners. 8. Guan spoke up from her seat. The restrictions had loopholes. Humans found every one. They traded through intermediaries, set up shell companies, worked through neutral ports. They followed the letter of our laws, while ignoring the spirit. That is deception, another member said. That is exactly what the Veltorian Empire did 200 years ago, G1 replied. We called them clever then. We accepted them into the council. Why is it different when humans do the same thing? No one answered. They all knew why. The council had expected humans to accept their place like other young species. Instead, humans had built themselves into something dangerous. Kresh activated another display. Military assessment, he said. His tone was grim. Human fleet size. Approximately 4,000 ships. Most are cargo vessels, but 800 are military grade. Their weapons technology is comparable to ours. Their defensive systems may be better, maybe. Velmora's mandibles clicked rapidly. You do not know? No, Kresh admitted. We have never seen them in combat. They have fought pirates. Yes, small conflicts. But they have never shown their full capabilities. Every engagement ends quickly. They reveal nothing. The room went silent as members absorbed this. An unknown military force of that size changed everything. There is more, Boren said. He looked uncomfortable. We have reports from multiple sources. Humans have been helping smaller species. Medical technology shared with the Polis worlds. Agricultural methods taught to the Darren colonies. Engineering assistance to the Salvex Union. All of it freely given. Why does this matter? Velmora asked. Because those species like them, Gi1 said quietly. Humans have been building alliances while we were not watching. Not through force, through friendship. Another council member, an elderly being named Horvath, made a gesture of concern. If we move against the humans, these other species may support them. We could face a coalition. Ridiculous, Velmora said. Lesser species do not oppose the council. They never have. They never had a strong ally before, G1 said. Humans have proven they can stand against us. It changes everything. Krish brought up tactical maps. Red marks showed human colonies. Blue marks showed council fleet positions. There were far more red marks than anyone had expected. If we blockade human worlds, Kresh said, they can blockade ours. They have the ships. They have the positions. Every major trade route passes through space where humans can reach. We have more ships, Velmora insisted. Do we? Kresh asked. We have 40 species in the council. How many will actually send ships to fight humans? How many will risk their own people for this? The question hung in the air. Everyone knew the answer. Most council species contributed to the defense fleet in name only. They paid taxes, but kept their real military at home. Only 5 or 6 species had powerful fleets, and those species were smart enough to wonder if this fight was worth it. We must act, Velmora said firmly. If we let humans defy us, others will follow. The council will collapse. If we attack and lose, the council will collapse faster, G1 said. We might lose. Has anyone considered that? It's one species. Cannot defeat the entire council, Horvath said, but he did not sound certain. One determined species, with superior economy, strategic positions, and popular support among smaller species. G1 leaned forward. That species might not need to defeat us. They just need to make fighting them cost more than it is worth. Velmora's compound eyes fixed on G1. Sound like you support them. I sound like someone who lived among them, G1 replied. I know how they think. You believe you can scare them into submission? You cannot. Fear does not work on humans the way it works on other species. Pressure makes them stubborn. Threats make them angry. And angry humans are extremely dangerous. Then what do you suggest? Velmora demanded. Negotiation. A real negotiation with them as equals, never. Velmora stood, her body segments extending to full height. We do not negotiate with rebellious species. We remind them of their place. Kresh sighed. If you insist on confrontation, at least make it limited. A blockade, not an attack. Show strength without triggering full war. Several members nodded. This seemed safer. Show the humans that defiance had consequences, but leave room to back down if things went wrong. Very well, Velmora said. We will blockade 3 human colonies to cut off their supplies, force them to ask for terms. Once they understand we are serious, they will comply. Jiwan shook her head but said nothing. She had warned them. They would not listen. The council had operated the same way for 3,000 years. They could not imagine any other approach. Which colonies? Boran asked. War Hanzong 7 and Busan Station, Velmora said. Important enough to hurt them, not so important they will risk war to defend them, when Kresh asked. Immediately. Assemble the fleet. I want ships in position within 10 days. The meeting ended. Council members filed out, most looking worried despite Velmora's confidence. Jiwan waited until only she and Kresh remained. This will end badly, she said. I know, Kresh replied. But the council has never learned to bend. They will break before they change. And how many will die when they break? Kresh had no answer. They both knew the cost would be high. The only question was whether the council would learn before the price became too terrible to pay. Outside the chamber, across the galaxy, human intelligence officers were already receiving reports of the council's plans. The blockade would not be a surprise. Humans had planned for this exact situation. Admiral Yuna received the message in her office on Earth. She read it twice, then activated her communication system. Within minutes, orders went out to 47 human systems. The council thought they were making the first move. It did not realize the game had already begun. Humans were 3 moves ahead. The council fleet arrived at Taijin 4. With enough ships to intimidate any species in the galaxy, 300. Vessels of various sizes formed a blockade around the human colony world. Their commander, a Korvax admiral named Torik, felt confident. This would be simple. Show strength. Wait for the humans to panic. Accept their surrender. Then the scans came back. Sir, his sensor officer said slowly, the planet is empty. What do you mean empty? No life signs? No power signatures. No ships in orbit. The colony is abandoned. Torik moved to the display. The officer was correct. Taijin 4 showed no signs of habitation. Buildings stood intact but silent. Streets were clear. Spaceports were vacant. When did they leave? Torik demanded. Unknown, sir. But based on power decay, at least 2 weeks ago, maybe 3. 2 weeks. The council had only made the decision to blockade 10 days ago. Somehow the humans had known. They had evacuated before the council fleet even departed. A message beacon activated near the planet. Torik's communication officer patched it through. A woman's face appeared on the screen. She wore a simple military uniform with admiral insignia. Name tag read Yuna. Greetings, Council Fleet Admiral, Yuna said. Her expression was neutral. By the time you see this, you will have discovered that Taijin 4 is empty. So are Hanzong 7 and Busan Station. We predicted you would target these colonies. They were never very important to us anyway. We built them as obvious targets. Torik felt something cold settle in his stomach. We have moved all civilians and equipment from these systems, Yuna continued. You are welcome to land and look around. You will find nothing of value. We did not even leave the furniture. Please. Consider this. If we could predict your strategy and evacuate 3 entire colonies without you noticing, what else might we know? What else might we have prepared? The message ended. Torik stood in silence. Round him, his bridge crew exchanged worried looks. Check the other blockade points, Torik ordered. Reports came back within minutes. Hansung 7 was empty. Busan Station had been completely dismantled. The council fleet now controlled 3 worthless systems. They had not fired a shot, had not achieved anything except proving the humans were better informed than they should be. Sir, incoming priority message from Zenith Prime, the communication officer said. Council Chair Velmora wants an immediate report. Torik dreaded making that call. How could he explain that the entire operation was pointless? Before he could respond, alarms went off across the fleet. New contacts appearing on sensors. Ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. But not here. Everywhere else, reports flooded in from across council space. Human ships had appeared in 15 different systems. Not attacking, just present. Sitting in orbit around council homeworlds and major installations on the Veltorian homeworld. 5 human cruisers held position above the capital city. On the Korvac Central Station, 10 human vessels waited at the edge of weapons range. The Talvarian Confederacy reported human ships near their primary shipyards. Every appearance came with the same message. Broadcast on all frequencies, Admiral. Yuna's face appeared again, but this time the message was live. To the Council and its member species, she began. You moved against our civilians. You sent warships to blockade our colonies. We responded by removing our people from danger. We do not want war, but we will not allow you to threaten our families. She paused. Behind her, other human officers worked at stations. Everything looked calm, professional. Our ships are now present near your homeworlds, Yuna continued. We have made no hostile actions. We have not locked weapons. We have not entered your defensive perimeters. But we are here, and we are staying. If you shoot at our empty colonies, we will defend ourselves. If you shoot at our ships, we will shoot back. The choice is yours. Another pause. Yuna's expression remained neutral, but her eyes were hard. Some of you may believe you can destroy our ships easily. Perhaps you could. But ask yourselves this question. If we could move fleets into position around 15 council worlds without being detected, what else can we do? How many more ships do we have? Where else are they positioned? How much of our real strength have we shown you? Message ended. Across council space, panic began. On Zenith Prime, Velmora received reports from a dozen worlds simultaneously. Every council member with human ships near their homeworld demanded answers. Some demanded the fleet return home immediately. Others insisted the humans were bluffing and should be attacked. Kresh studied the tactical data in his office. The human ships were positioned perfectly, not close enough to be an immediate threat, but close enough to strike if needed. Everyone sat where council defensive weapons could not reach them without leaving. Homeworlds vulnerable. It was brilliant. G1 reviewed the economic reports that came next. Within hours of the human ships appearing, trade began to stop. Human merchant vessels refused to enter council space. Ships carrying human goods turned back. Trade stations found themselves empty of human products. The effect was immediate. Medical supplies ran short on 3 worlds. The Polis system discovered that 40% of their food came through human trade networks. The Salvex Union realized their manufacturing depended on human raw materials. How had they let humans become so economically vital? The answer was simple. For 15 years, humans had offered good products at fair prices. They had been reliable, helpful. Everyone had grown dependent on them without realizing it. In her office, Dalnam coordinated the logistics of the evacuation. She had been the administrator of Taijin 4, responsible for moving 30,000 people and all their equipment in 3 weeks without anyone noticing. It had been exhausting, but it worked. She watched the reports coming in from council space and allowed herself a small smile. The council had planned to pressure humans by blockading colonies. Instead, humans had turned empty planets into a statement. We knew you were coming. We were ready. We are always ready. Admiral Yuna sat in her command center on Earth, watching the situation develop. Around her, officers tracked every council ship, every message, every response. Humans had been preparing for this confrontation since they first encountered the council. They had studied council tactics, identified weaknesses, built contingencies. The council had mistaken human patience for weakness. They had assumed compliance meant acceptance. They had never considered that humans might be waiting for the right moment. Admiral, one of her officers reported, 3 minor council species have sent unofficial messages. They want to open direct communication. They are asking if we are accepting new trade partners. Yuna nodded. It was beginning. Once species realized they could work with humans directly, council authority would crumble. Tell them yes, she said. Any species that wants fair trade and respectful relations is welcome. No tribute required. No restrictions. Just honest business. Another report came in. The council fleet at Taijin 4 was withdrawing. They had searched the empty planet and found nothing. Torek had ordered his ships to pull back and await new orders. The council will have to decide now, Yuna said to her staff. They can negotiate with us as equals, or they can escalate. If they choose escalation, we will show them the rest of our preparations. She looked at the display showing human ship positions. 15 council worlds with human vessels nearby, 47 human systems with full defensive networks, hundreds of allied species ready to support them. Economic leverage across the entire galaxy. The humans had not started this confrontation, but they had prepared for it. And now the council faced a choice they had never had to make before: compromise or collapse. Across the galaxy, other species watched and wondered. If humans could stand up to the council, maybe others could too. If humans could say no, maybe the rules could change. The panic was just beginning. It would get worse before it got better. But from that panic, something new might grow. Something better. If anyone had the courage to let it, the council chamber had never been so loud. 40 species shouted at each other, their voices creating chaos. Velmora tried to restore order, but for the first time in her leadership, no one listened. My homeworld has human ships in orbit. One ambassador screamed. You promised this would be simple? Our trade is stopped completely, another said. Our economy is collapsing. 3 of our defense stations went offline, a third reported. Human hackers, we think. They left a message saying they could have destroyed them, but chose not to. This is a disaster. Velmora raised all her limbs for silence. It took several minutes before the chamber quieted enough for her to speak. The situation is under control, she said, though even she did not sound convinced. We have military options. Military options. Juan stood up. Her voice cut through the noise. Are you insane? Human ships are positioned near 15 homeworlds. If we attack them, they will defend themselves. Do you want war? We want them to remember their place, Velmora said coldly. Their place? Kresh stood as well. Look at what they have accomplished. They built an economy larger than ours. They positioned fleets without us noticing. They predicted every move we made. Perhaps we need to accept that their place is as our equals. Never, Velmora said. The council does not negotiate with rebellious species. Then the council will fall, G1 said flatly. Because 3 species contacted me yesterday. They want to leave the council and form direct agreements with humanity. How many more will follow? Murmurs spread through the chamber. The idea of species leaving the council had been unthinkable a week ago. Now it seemed possible. Horvath activated a display. Economic report, he said grimly. In 5 days, council trade has decreased by 40%. Medical supplies are running short on 7 worlds. Manufacturing has stopped in 12 systems. We are being strangled economically, and we did it to ourselves. How? Another member demanded. We restricted ourselves when we restricted the humans, Horvath explained. We did not realize how dependent we had become on human goods and services. They were everywhere in our economy. Now they are gone, and we cannot replace them quickly enough. Velmora's mandibles clicked angrily. Then we forced them back. Military action? Against what target? Kresh asked. Their colonies are empty. Their fleets are mobile. Their economy is distributed. What exactly will you attack? Before Velmora could answer, alarms sounded. Every member's communication device activated simultaneously. Emergency reports flooded in. A council supply convoy had been attacked, not by humans, by pirates. But the convoy had been protected by a council military escort of 30 ships. The entire escort had been destroyed. The pirates had used human weapons. See? Velmora said triumphantly. The humans arm our enemies. Did they? Jiwan pulled up the detailed report. These weapons were sold to the Margol Federation 3 years ago. Legal sale, approved by the council. The Margal government reported them stolen 6 months ago. The humans warned us then that pirates had these weapons. She looked around the chamber. The humans told us about the threat. We did nothing. The convoy was attacked because our intelligence failed, not because humans helped pirates. Regardless, Velmora said, we must respond. I am ordering a strike against the human supply route near the Bexon sector. I oppose this, Kresh said immediately. As do I, said 3 other military commanders. Velmora looked shocked. You refuse a direct order? We refuse a foolish order, Kresh said. Attacking human supply ships will provoke exactly the war you claim to want to avoid. I will not send my people to die for your pride. The chamber exploded into argument again. Some species supported Velmora, others sided with Kresh. The council was splitting down the middle. Velmora, desperate to restore her authority, made a fatal decision. I am ordering the attack without council approval. The Veltorian fleet will strike the human convoy at Bexon Sector in 6 hours. You cannot do that, G1 said. Council law requires majority approval for military action. Council law is whatever I say it is, Velmora snapped. In that moment, everything changed. For 3,000 years, the council had maintained the illusion of being fair. Of following its own rules, Velmora had just admitted the truth. The council was a dictatorship. G1 looked around the chamber. She saw shock on many faces, anger on others. And on a few faces, she saw the same calculation she was making. If the council would not follow its own laws, why should anyone else? I have something to show you all, G1 said quietly. She activated her personal display. Files appeared in the air. Communication records, financial transactions, secret agreements. For the last year, I have been gathering evidence, G1 continued. These are recordings of council leadership meetings, private conversations between council chairs and senior members, financial records from the tribute accounts. She pulled up specific files. This shows the real tribute payments from the last 50 years. Humans paid 4 times the standard rate. But so did the Darren, the Salvex, the Polis, and 15 other species. All young species. All charged more than established members. More files appeared. This shows where that extra tribute went. Not to council operations. 2 private accounts controlled by council leadership, Velmora, Torvash, Grendix, and 6 others. They have been stealing from the tribute system for decades. The chamber went completely silent. Why? Velmora said, but her voice lacked conviction. These are official council financial records, G1 said. Certified and sealed. I did not create them. I just found them. The council leadership has been embezzling billions while telling us the money was needed for defense and infrastructure. Horvath examined the records. His expression darkened. These are authentic. I recognized the certification codes. Species that had paid excessive tributes stood up, their representatives furious. The Darren ambassador pointed at Velmora. You told us high tribute was necessary for our protection. You were just stealing from us. This changes nothing, Velmora said desperately. We still must deal with the human problem. You are the problem, Kresh said coldly. The humans were right. The council is corrupt. It always has been. Before anyone could respond, new alerts arrived. The Veltorian fleet had launched its attack on the human convoy at Bexon Sector. 40 council warships against 10 human supply vessels. The battle lasted 8 minutes. Human ships that had seemed like simple cargo vessels transformed into warships. Their true capabilities had been hidden. Defensive screens deflected council weapons. Human missiles moved faster than council sensors could track. Countermeasures confused council targeting systems. When it ended, 37 council ships were destroyed. 3 survived only because humans let them retreat. The human convoy had not lost a single ship. They had not even been damaged. Admiral Yuna's message followed immediately. We did not want this fight. We tried to avoid it. But you attacked our people without provocation. We defended ourselves. We will always defend ourselves. But we still prefer peace. The offer remains open. Negotiate with us as equals. And this stops now, the council chamber. Velmora stared at the battle report. Impossible. The humans had been hiding their true military strength all along. Everything the council thought it knew was wrong. Will support me? Velmora asked quietly. Who will stand with me to finish this? She looked around the chamber. 2 species raised their hands. 2 out of 40. It is over, Kresh said. Not just this conflict. The entire council system? You broke it when you ignored your own laws. You destroyed it when you stole from us. And you finished it when you sent ships to die for nothing. Species began walking out. First a few, then more. Within minutes, only a handful remained. Velmora stood alone at the center of the chamber, watching her authority evaporate. G-1 approached her. You could have negotiated. You could have treated them fairly. Now everything falls apart. What will happen? Velmora asked, her voice broken. Something new, G-1 said. Something better, if we are brave enough to build it. Across the galaxy, reports spread. The Council had attacked humans and lost badly. Council leadership had been stealing for decades. The entire system was crumbling. But in that collapse, opportunity emerged. Species that had never spoken to each other started talking. Old grievances came into the light. New possibilities appeared. And at the center of it all, humanity waited. Not as conquerors, not as destroyers, but as partners, ready to help build something better from the ruins of the old system. The panic was reaching its peak. But beyond the panic, hope was beginning to grow. 6 weeks had passed since the Council began to fracture. The great chamber of Zenith Prime looked different now. Seats that once held only 40 Council species now contained representatives from 70 different civilizations. Some had been Council members. Many had not. They had come because they heard something new was being built here. Hyansu stood at the center of the chamber. But this time he was not alone. Giwan stood beside him. So did Kresh. Representatives from 30 species that had never been allowed in this chamber before stood with them. Together. They had spent weeks drafting something that had never existed before. A real charter of equals. Velmora sat in the back. She had been removed from leadership, but allowed to remain as a witness. She looked smaller now, diminished. The power she had wielded so carelessly was gone. We gather today not to rebuild the Council, Hyansu began, his voice calm and clear, but to create something new. The old system failed because it was built on fear and control. We will build this one on cooperation and respect. He activated a display. The new charter appeared for everyone to see. The Galactic Assembly Charter, Hyansu continued. Every member species has equal representation. No species pays tribute to any other. All laws apply equally to everyone. Decisions require majority approval. Leadership rotates every 5 years. All financial records are public, and any species may leave at any time without penalty. Murmurs spread through the chamber. For species used to the old Council system, this sounded impossible. For others, it sounded like hope. An ambassador from the Darren colony stood. Why should we trust this? The Council promised fairness too. G1 stepped forward. Because this charter has enforcement built in. Any species can challenge a law in public forum. Any 3 species can call for review of leadership. Financial records are audited by rotating committees. And if the Assembly breaks its own rules, it dissolves automatically. No one stays in power by ignoring the law. What about military power? Asked a Salvex representative. The old Council maintained peace through strength. Kresh answered this. The Assembly will have no permanent military force. Instead, member species pledge mutual defense. If one is attacked unjustly, all respond. But no single species can use the Assembly fleet for their own purposes. Military action requires approval from 2/3 of members. And the humans. This came from one of Velmora's remaining supporters. They have the largest fleet. Will they dominate this new assembly? Hyansu smiled slightly. We have already pledged to reduce our military to defensive levels only. We will help other species upgrade their defenses if they want. But we will not build an empire. We did not refuse council control just to become controllers ourselves. A small furry ambassador from the Polis world stood nervously. My people were never allowed in the council. We were considered too primitive. Will we truly have equal voice here? Yes, Hyansu said firmly. Every species at this table has equal vote. Your civilization is young, but you are not lesser. You deserve the same respect as anyone else. The Polis ambassador sat down, and several other small species looked at each other with something like wonder. For the first time, someone was treating them as equals. The debate continued for hours. Species raised concerns. Humans and their allies answered them. Not with threats, not with promises of power. Just with calm, reasonable explanations of how the system would work. Finally, Horvath stood. He had been part of the old council, one of the few honest members. "I have one question," he said. "The old council lasted 3,000 years before it became corrupt. What makes you think this assembly will not follow the same path?" Sua stepped forward. She was a human scientist who had spent years sharing medical technology with other species. "Because we are not pretending to be perfect," she said. "The old council claimed to be infallible. It hid its mistakes. When corruption began, no one could admit it, because that would mean the system had failed." She gestured to the charter. "This system assumes there will be problems. It expects people to make mistakes, so it includes ways to fix them. Term limits prevent anyone from holding power too long. Public records make hiding corruption difficult. The ability to leave means no one is trapped. And most importantly, we admit from the start that this is an experiment. If it fails, we will try something else. An experiment." Horvath looked surprised. "Yes," Hyensu said. "The old council believed it had found the final answer. We believe we are just beginning to ask the right questions. Maybe this system will work for 1,000 years. Maybe it will need to change in 100. We do not know. But we will face those challenges together as equals." The chamber went quiet as species considered this. It was so different from what they had known. The old council had claimed absolute authority. This new assembly admitted uncertainty. Somehow, that made it feel more trustworthy. "I call for a vote," G1 said. "All species present equal voice. Do we adopt this charter and form the Galactic Assembly?" Hands, paws, tentacles, and limbs of every description rose across the chamber. 70 species voted. 67 said yes. 2 said no. 1 abstained. The charter passed. For a moment, no one moved. Then someone started clapping. Others joined. Soon the chamber filled with the sounds of celebration from dozens of different species. They had done something that seemed impossible. They had chosen to trust each other. Over the next hours, practical matters were discussed. The assembly would maintain Zenith Prime as its meeting place, but now all species would share it equally. The first chairman would be Kresh, elected by majority vote. After 5 years, leadership would rotate to another species. Trade agreements were established. Not the restrictive contracts of the old council, but open markets where any species could participate fairly. Humans agreed to share technology that had been kept secret. Medical advances, agricultural methods, manufacturing techniques. All of it freely available to assembly members. Su-Ah presented the first of these gifts, a medical scanner that could detect dozens of diseases early. "We developed this 5 years ago," she said. "We have been waiting for the right time to share it. This is that time." Similar offers came from other species. The Korvax shared water purification technology. The Centauri offered educational programs. The Darren presented new farming methods. Species that had competed under the old system now offered to help each other. Velmora watched all of this from her seat in the back. Finally, she stood and approached the center. The chamber went quiet. "I was wrong," she said simply. "I believed control was necessary for peace. I believed hierarchy made sense. I was wrong, and I am sorry." No one quite knew how to respond. Velmora had been so certain, so absolute in her authority. Hearing her admit error felt strange. "I do not ask for forgiveness," Velmora continued. "I do not deserve it. But I want younger species to learn from my mistakes. Power corrupts. Authority without accountability corrupts faster. If you build this new system, protect it from people like me, protect it from those who think they know better than everyone else." She sat down. After a moment, Hyensu nodded to her. Not forgiveness. Just acknowledgement that she had finally understood as the first day of the assembly ended. representatives filed out. Many looked exhausted but hopeful. They had witnessed something extraordinary. Not the birth of another empire, but the beginning of real cooperation. Hyansu remained in the chamber after everyone else left. They stood together looking at the seats that had held so many different species. "Do you think it will work?" G1 asked quietly. "I do not know," Hyansu admitted, "but it is worth trying." "The humans took an enormous risk," Kresh said. "You could have dominated. Built your own empire. Why did you not?" Hyansu considered the question. "Because we have seen empires before. On our own world, they always fall. Always. We wanted to try something different, something better." Sua smiled. "And maybe we succeed. Maybe we fail. But at least we tried to build something worth having." They left the chamber together. Behind them, the lights dimmed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Disagreements would arise. Some species would test the new system's limits. Others would struggle with equality after so long under hierarchy. But for tonight, the galaxy had changed. Not through conquest, not through force, but through the simple, radical idea that everyone deserved respect. 1 year later, a memorial was dedicated on Zenith Prime. It honored all the species who had suffered under the old council system, the ones who had paid excessive tribute, the ones who had been exploited, the ones who had been ignored. G1 and Hyansu stood at the dedication ceremony. Representatives from 100 species attended. The Galactic Assembly had grown. More species joined every month, drawn by the promise of fair treatment. Problems had emerged, of course. Trade disputes, territorial disagreements, cultural conflicts. But the Assembly had resolved them through negotiation, not force. Some solutions worked perfectly. Others needed revision. But every problem was faced together as equals. "This is just the beginning," Hyansu said to G1 as they looked at the memorial. "Yes," G1 agreed. "But it is a good beginning." Across the galaxy, species that had once feared the Council now worked together building something new. Not perfect. Never perfect, but better. Always trying to be better. And at the heart of it all was a simple truth that humans had insisted on from the start. Strength comes not from dominating others, but from lifting them up. True power is not the ability to force compliance, but the wisdom to inspire cooperation. The old council had ruled through fear. The new assembly would lead through respect. That made all the difference. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly the point.